now. And then we would also live stream. So our guest today is Rahim Shamji, and he's the founder and CEO of ADR ODR International. And before specializing in alternative dispute resolution and ODR, he was called to the bar and working as a barrister at Gatehouse Chambers. He is a mediator and regularly undertakes multidisciplinary and multi-party cases. So he founded ADR ODR International Limited in London in 2016 because he was clear about what we're all very clear about, what Robert is clear about, Mires is clear about ODR. And that technology definitely was going to change the way disputes will be resolved. So he's a leading mediator, he's a trainer, and has delivered several mediations across the world. Of course, he's very keen in cross-cultural issues because he appreciates that that can be a barrier to settlement. Without much ado, I would want to invite Rahim Shamji to share with us this evening. But just before we do that, Mr. Adejun Adenuga used to be the chairman of the advisory board and also a trustee of ODR Africa Network. He passed on sometime in June and has been buried, but I would like us to just, in honor of him, because if he were alive, he would usually be the very, very first person on this call. And I know that Robert and Mires can testify to that. So I just want us to observe a minute of silence in his honor. And I'll ask Mires to pray for Ross after that minute before Rahim can then take on. Please, Mires.
May I say a Christian prayer?
Definitely, he was a Christian just like you.
Okay. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespass, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thou art the power, the glory, and the kingdom, forever and ever. Amen. May the soul of Juan rest in peace, and may we thank him also for all what he did for ODR Africa. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mires. Thank you. So, Rahim, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everybody, and particularly everyone involved with ODR Africa for this very, very kind invitation. I'm delighted, and I'm sorry I was a few minutes late, but I had a very pressing meeting which I had to attend. But I'm very grateful to be with you all and to see some familiar names on the screen. And to everyone who will be listening to this, I'm very humbled to be asked to come and share my thoughts and my views on ODR. And I want to start by sharing a little bit about my journey into the world of ADR and ODR. And it takes me back to 2015, when the European Union was introducing a new directive on consumer disputes across all 28 member states at the time, including the United Kingdom. And it required all member states to create dispute resolution processes which would be anchored into a single platform that the EU would use for people to access dispute resolution. And it was one of the most incredible pieces of law, legislation, and rules that I had witnessed that got people to start thinking about ODR. And the beauty of this law was the idea that across member states, people could resolve their disputes using technology. you have to remember that when the law was passed, when people got it into force in 2015, 2016, we hadn't hit the pandemic. And Zoom was something that was still very, very nascent. We were still using a little bit of Skype Business, a little bit of WebEx, but really we were not using it in a non-commercial capacity. And this idea was really powerful for me. And so at the end of 2015, having advised lots of organizations in the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe on how to be compliant with this directive, I felt the need was that the future for me was online dispute resolution. So in 2016, in October, I launched ADR ODR International, and I was very careful in ensuring that the letters of the organization, the names, ODR had to be present. ADR was the current and the past, but the future belonged to online dispute resolution. And I'm not sure if any of you are aware of Mark Prensky, who's one of these great thinkers out of the United States. And he'd written a paper in 2001 entitled Digital Native versus Digital Immigrant. And in 2001, pre the iPhone, pre the smartphone, pre BlackBerry, he had been talking about the revolution of digitalization, of how digital services, digital tools, email, internet, digital TV were taking over what we were doing. You know, YouTube was around and we were watching a lot of content on YouTube. There was Facebook really wasn't something that was in any significant form. But what we had was a move. And in his paper, Mark Prensky says that 1980 is the dividing line of digital natives and digital immigrants. So in 2015, my prediction was that anyone born in 1980 was around 35 now, right? 31, heading towards 35. And they would be a world of complete digital natives. We're now in 2024. We are now 44 years on from there. And people in their 40s are decision makers of very large organizations and smaller organizations. This group of people have grown up to have technology as part of life. And if you're born in 1990, you're born in 2000, you are so digitalized that for me, that world of ODR is second nature. So for many of us, even having the conversation, what does ODR mean? How will it work? For a generation after me and after many of you, it's not how will it work? It's how do we make the most of it? How do we make the best of this situation? And so that journey for me was about this is the only way we will look at things. I'm not saying we're going to replace in-person, but I do feel strongly that ODR has made such an impact that it won't be a trend or a fad or something we even talk about as how do we deal with it. And we, through the pandemic, accelerated that, as you will know, to that extent. So a little bit about the past for that. Now, the more I talk about ODR, the more I talk about its use, how organizations are using it, like eBay, as you will know from people like Colin Rule, who set up the first ODR platforms for them. That we look at Alibaba, retail shopping, Amazon, we look at getting online visas, we get at booking flights. The more I'm convinced that our whole approach for a large group of people, particularly mediators, arbitrators who were trained without ODR, that we're struggling to bring the two together. And I want to talk about two key aspects that I think we need to start thinking about, which the younger generations get, but the middle and older generations are really struggling with. And those two concepts are digital vocabulary and digital empathy. So I think we struggle with this idea of digital vocabulary. When we start looking at digital tools, digital platforms, digital processes, what we're often trying to do is say, well, this is how we have done it in person. This is how we did it when we're in the courts. This is how we do it when we're in the room. How do we replicate that? And my difficulty with replicating something that you do directly in person to online is you miss opportunities of being more connected. So simply saying video mediation, video arbitration is the answer is a bit limiting. And that's because our vocabulary is still stuck in the ADR world and not the ODR world. And I think we need to start rethinking the teaching, the learning, the experience of how we can bring those tools in. And of course, ODR at its very basic is anything that's technological that can help us resolve disputes. And so we can have in-person and non-in-person activity. So algorithms, artificial intelligence, when no human being is involved, can still help us resolve disputes. But we still haven't got to grips with the vocabulary that goes with both. So that's my first proposition that I wanted to share with you. My second proposition is, whilst we're all engaging in the online world for dispute resolution, we need to start thinking about our digital empathy skills, In the pandemic, I did some research on this. When you look at younger people aged 11, 12, and 13, up to 18, 19, 20, they seem to survive the pandemic in a very different way. They were very comfortable hanging out with friends online. They wouldn't use necessarily Zoom, but they might use Google Hangout, Google Meet, and other such platforms. And they could hang out without saying anything. They could hang out without even turning off the mute button. They would send emojis to each other. If somebody was having a bad day, they might send some heart emojis. They might send some virtual hug emojis. And this group of people were able to equate these digital emojis to mean the words that you might express like we are expressing right now. And they got comfortable with a vocabulary and a form of expression that for many of us is still too foreign. So if I was to ask you in the last 24 hours, have you sent an emoji? Probably some of you would say, yes, I have. Maybe someone sent you a very nice message, and then you went onto your WhatsApp or similar platform and said the love sign. Maybe you said the thank you sign, maybe thumbs up, maybe laughing, where people have an expression with the emoji with the tears coming out, which shows we're laughing. But those are very limited forms of expression. And there are younger people who can have full sentence conversations just by using the emoji. And I just returned last weekend from India. And the International Arbitration and Mediation Center of Hyderabad just launched or had hosted the India Mediation Weekend. And speaking to, on the second day, hundreds of younger people from universities, the only question they wanted to ask and engage in is how they could use more online dispute resolution tools to help people resolve disputes. But even if we focus on digital vocabulary, even if we focus on digital empathy, one of the challenges of getting to grips with those is access to justice. How do we allow more and more people to access justice? And I'm sure many of you are aware of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, particularly Sustainable Development Goal number 16, that talks about access to justice. And on the one hand, one would argue that technology will reach more people than the traditional courts, going to the courts, getting justice from a courts, etc. But on the other hand, and this is one of our big challenges now, is access or lack of access to digital tools or digital poverty. And for me, we need to focus on digital poverty as a very, very important tool in ensuring that people have access to justice, and then getting everyone to start thinking about digital vocabulary and digital empathy. I think I've got a comment from Robert. Let me just have a look at what has come up on my screen. Robert, I would welcome you to unmute and talk as well. I'm more than happy to have a dialogue. I wanted just to share your comment so that everyone can hear it.
Sure.
You said, I think it's more than vocabulary. Physical presence and virtual presence are different. Fully agree. In addition to today's world of disputes includes social media influences, behavioral addiction to technology, confirmation bias caused by social media, communication through text messaging, and use of hieroglyphics, emojis, etc. Do you want to share a bit more, Robert, with that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of disputes today, especially in the generation we're talking about, are caused because of the lack of focus on people in general. You know, the average person now spends roughly 11 years of their life looking at their phone. If you add on social media, email, binge watching TV, online gaming, half the life is given to behavioral addiction to technology, and which we unfortunately don't treat as addiction, and tends to be worse than drug addiction because there are therapies for drug addiction. There are no real therapies for behavioral addiction, and the technology, me being part of it since my whole life has been in technology, is designed to keep you addicted. So, and you can't seem to do without it because we're in a world of technology as well. And so we need to address this as well, along with some of the other issues. And so I guess my point about physical and social feeling the sense of presence is more than just visual cues on a screen. It's about smells, sensory information, everything around you that makes you feel presence. It's not just a visual cue. All right. And because the technology really isn't fast enough to pick up really quick changes in visual cues like eye movement, it doesn't tend to be very useful. And the average meeting, unfortunately, wastes roughly 80% of the time people are daydreaming, not paying attention, or trying to fidget with how they look on a screen. And the other problem is there's no real protocol for interruptions. And if you interrupt someone's chain of thought, which is very important, audio synchrony is very important for solving complex problems. It takes the average person 10 minutes to get back to their chain of thought. So you've just wasted quite a bit of time. So my general point is you need other tools to pick up the deficits that are caused by ODR. And so.
Yeah, look, I appreciate your thoughts, and they're very, very, very valid and very welcome. I think that we need to do a few things though with that. So I agree with physical presence. I agree with it's different to virtual presence, and I agree with the challenges that you raise with what technology brings to the table. What I do think we haven't done yet is start to think about the very tools of trying to resolve those disputes online and in person in a way that's more meaningful. So we've just gone for the straightforward in-person mediation just to be on a Zoom. Right now, just because you can't be physically in a building with me doesn't mean you should be doing the mediation from your bedroom or your lounge. And especially internationally. So one of the things that I try to do when I have cases, for example, where people don't want to travel across continents or time zones, is I still ask them to all be part of the team in one location in that one city or country, so that we start to look at the information not from all sitting in one corner, 5 screens separate, but actually just 3 screens with 20 people, and trying to change the dynamics of that mediation, because I think that they are different. When it comes to how we use technology and the bias of social media, I couldn't agree more. And I think we just haven't found a way of helping people to regulate the way they use technology and media, because therein becomes a huge amount of disruption and conflict that comes up. And that conflict often isn't legal conflict. So it doesn't end up in what we would call the legal formal way of resolving disputes. This becomes just a big challenge of how people feel about things, respond, and react to things. But I do think that there is a whole area of development on the vocabulary and the movement of designing platforms that allow us to engage and understand the conflicts that come out of even digital conflicts and non-digital conflicts. So my focus has always been, people have everyday conflicts in their lives about contracts, about tortious claims, about other issues, family, divorce, workplace, but not to necessarily have them resolved in the traditional, we need to go to a venue to get this sense of justice. Can we get that justice using technological means? Do you see what I'm saying, Robert?
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly why I designed the platform for that problem. So it's to get at things like, what are people's priorities through the cloud of emotion? How do you get fair division using game theory? And there's a lot of tools that can be applied. So, and the platform kind of integrates all those tools, from everything from generating questions to solving math problems, things like that. So it's really to elevate the problem in a way where you can understand the key issues and underlying sentiments without being physically present. So
yeah,
I think
yes,
that's
exactly.
So I understand
those,
that.
those are going to be very useful tools as we move forward from game theory to helping you design questions. And I wanted to share another example of something that I witnessed a few months ago in the United Arab Emirates. I was in Abu Dhabi at the Abu Dhabi Global Markets Center, where they do hearings as well as mediations and arbitrations. And they've created ADR in the metaverse. And they've gone into a platform which I had some demonstrations of, and I thought was absolutely remarkable. It's got challenges, but this idea that you could be immersed in an almost virtual environment of the real building and the real room, but in the metaverse, and discussions, document sharing, really gave an incredible feel like one has not been given before. And I just thought that was a magnificent way of taking a tool, some vocab, and some empathetic tools to help people engage through their court system without physically coming there. Very powerful. I'm not sure if anyone has seen that platform or had a chance to use it. Mirez, your hand's up, I think.
Yes,
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Actually, what I wanted to share with you is the fact that online dispute resolution has not so far been successful, although we have been militating for it since over 20 years now, because in my view, it has not been encouraged by governments, by institutions, and by those who invest financially to support projects of online dispute resolution platforms. They are much more looking for revenue generating services. And once they invest in a platform that does not generate revenue within a year or two, they simply interrupt the program. And nobody is really interested in the long-term investment of building platforms to resolve disputes. We know that millions of small disputes can be settled online because of the backlog in the courts all over the world, and because small disputes and even medium disputes do not need to send parties to courtrooms in order to settle the disputes. So lots of actually denial of remedy is something that people are suffering from, being individuals or companies. And I think that if we do not involve governments, because I see, for instance, in France, several platforms started, and unfortunately, when the agenda of the new government changes, then they throw everything to the garbage and start again. And you never get to something if you do not convince the users that it's not science fiction. So I just wanted to make this comment. And I agree with everything you said, of course.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mirez, for that. I kind of agree with you about the funding and the return on investment that the people are looking for. But then I look at platforms like Presolve 360 in India and Sama. I'm sure you're aware of the two platforms I'm talking about in India.
Yeah.
Who've received government funding.
Oh, good.
Who have received private funding.
Mm-hmm.
And we just gone into an MOU with Presolve 360 because we have launched in India on the weekend, actually, in a more formal capacity. And they're doing between 15 and 20,000 cases a month.
Wow. This is great. This is a great example that should be replicated, or at least testified, so that people are convinced that it works.
And the government is very keen to stop cases going to court. As you know, in India, you have 36 million cases pending in the Indian legal system. If one's to look at the average of the time it takes to resolve a dispute there with an appeal is in excess of 50, 60 years, bordering 70.
Yeah.
So the government is very keen to say to the citizens, look, you need to go elsewhere and get resolution done. And I tell you who's driving the platform, and I tell you who's driving the cases coming to those platforms are what I call the sub 30 market. These sub 30-year-olds, as we all do, can book flights and trains and watch films and listen to music in an instant. But if you tell them that you've got to wait years to resolve your dispute through the courts, they just look at you like you're crazy. And they will happily go. And these 15 to 20,000 cases a month are arbitration, mediation, assisted negotiation, etc. They are really, really powerful platforms. And they're doing, there's another one called Sama, S-A-M-A, which started life as what was called ODR Ways, W-A-Y-S. Again, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible numbers being funded by private organizations, not necessarily from a returns perspective, but from an impact perspective.
Yeah.
One of the organizations that has funded one of these two platforms told me directly that we're not interested in necessarily revenue on our return on investment, but it's got to be an impact to society and improving the quality of life.
Wow, this is very encouraging. I hope they will share the experience.
Yeah, and I will tell you for now that the Western European countries, the US and Canada, as much as we talk about ODR, the impact and the development and the tech is coming from Asia.
Yeah,
it's Asia. Some of the most bright platforms I've seen are in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh,
yeah,
Thailand, etc. Really, just incredible.
Yeah. I guess that Europe is the bad child, is the bad student, or whatever, bad example, unfortunately. But yeah, and that this
I think it's the same in the UK. Same in the UK, Mirrors, right? You know, I for a long time have been talking to government here in the UK, to other civil society and partner organizations, saying we need to develop ODR, and they're like, well, you know, how will that work? What's it going to be? Is it all low value disputes? But if you put volume behind it, I mean, the UK's got 1.6 million new cases a year in litigation. There's a huge opportunity, but you know, it would disrupt the legal model, the billing model, the court model.
The way to improve also the confidence of the potential users is not only dissemination and education, but also publishing of reports, providing feedback about cases which were settled and how it was settled, how many were settled, and so on. So all of this information should really be available to users.
Yes, it should. It should. And I think this is one of the things that they're doing in India, is all the platforms are coming together to start talking about the impact, the cases, the values, money saved. There's a business case for businesses and government to say what power. And I know you probably know the UK is about to start making mediation mandatory. And Richard Susskind, till very recently, was the chief advisor to the UK government. There will be an online platform which will be the centralized place to go and resolve your dispute, which will be linked to private providers and to the courts. So it should be a completely seamless transaction. And you don't have to be thrown pillar to post and take things into the courts, out of the courts and back into the courts. It has to be ODR done in a way that the user doesn't know where they are, but they're on a single government platform.
One stop.
One stop. It has to. It has to.
Great. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you, Mirez. Another question, Moreniki?
Yes, well, I just wanted to add to the conversation. Yes, to agree with you that it seems the lack of success is trying to move the skills exactly as they are in the face-to-face to online, and that limits, of course, the outcomes, because of course the skills are very different. But then I also just wanted to add, and I think Mirez is aware of, we had this platform. Unfortunately, Mirez, we don't have it anymore. It was, and this was a government platform for consumer protection. So it was the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Council for Nigeria. And when they had other means of resolving disputes, like calling in or going to their offices, they probably had maybe like 1,000 cases in a year. And then when they had this online platform, just to show you and to agree with you about the successes in India, we also had that in Nigeria for some time. They had about 1,000 in a week. And it was so good that the retailers were themselves putting up ensuring resolution, because they knew that there was a go-to place that the consumers would easily get to. And because, of course, it was backed by a government agency. So that just emphasizes the importance of government support in ODR, because without that, now that that platform is off now, so everyone has just gone back to what we had before then, just to support that assertion. And it's really heartwarming to hear that you have organizations who are ready to put in their funding just to make impact in society. Because as Mires said, the experience we've had with a lot of the platforms is that venture capitalists are not interested in funding them, and they require a lot of funding. And so because of that, they will start and then they will just fizzle out. So those are just my thoughts and my contributions.
No, it's they're very welcome. And of course, this is one of the big challenges, right? So I think, but I do feel that if we're really going to make progress in an ODR sense of getting people behind, as Mirez has said, it does have to come from the state. The state has to probably legislate, create some framework so that people start to use these platforms in a more trusted and meaningful way. I just don't think we've got another opportunity otherwise. And I appreciate the comment on the chat from Daniel about the Gen Z and the millennials are not very good with physical presence. And the online schools are exploding here in the US. Students are more comfortable online. I mean, that's happening in many parts of the world where people feel the online teaching world is a little bit better. But thank you, Robert, for joining us. Thank you. But I think that there is this whole generational change, which I think we need to really start to engage with. And at ADR ODR, we are working with what I call the sub 35, sub 40 market, because that's where the biggest change is, and that's where the biggest opportunity is for us to really make an impact in the way people deal with their disputes. Because that generation does not want to wait, does not want to go to a physical place, does not want to have to wait and say, how long before I resolve my dispute? You cannot live in a digital instant world and then say, but dispute resolution will take months and years. And their vocabulary and their empathy, their knowledge is digital. And so we are falling short, I think, in the world in developing those opportunities. I would welcome anyone else who's got any other questions or thoughts. But this is what I really wanted to kind of bring to the table about where we're going. And we're looking at creating platforms where digital vocabulary and digital empathy start to become a little bit better understood from all of those, whether you're in or outside that generation. Yeah, Maranki?
Okay, so I just wanted to ask you a question. So when we talk about digital empathy, would it be limited to symbols and signs, or can you throw a bit more light about that?
I think, first of all, the word digital means any platform where you might engage with people. The ones that we know that we do every day are things like the WhatsApp text messages, right? So, you know, you and I will WhatsApp each other and you'll say, oh, thank you so much. And I will put a little heart up there, or, you know, a hug and say, that's great. So that's what I would call that basic level. The next level is I'm engaging with you on a video platform. I'm engaging with you on another digital platform, but I am mindful that just words in themselves might not be enough. And so maybe there starts to become a digital dictionary of things that start to help you understand what I meant. So it might be the way I even physically look at you, I put my hand on my heart, is a digital communication because it's digital, but I'm not physically with you. Even to the extent I wish I was next to you so I could give you a hug, is not something you might always say because you're on a digital platform, right? It can be that your device has, I don't know if anyone's got the Apple Watch, right? So if you and I are connected by wearing an Apple Watch, I can send a beating heart from my watch to your watch, and it comes up saying Rahim's thinking of you. Right? That in itself is a form of digital communication, and I would argue a form of digital empathy. Right? So it doesn't have to be just restricted to the emoji knowledge that we are in now. I think we have to permeate that a little bit deeper. And once we do that, I really think we can start to create a totally different narrative on the ODR side. Mirez, you said one thing is sure, we should not stop our initiatives and we should keep promoting ODR despite the fact that over 3 decades. Yeah, look, I think we're in a different place now, Mirez, than we were pre-pandemic. And in the pre-pandemic world, you know, we were like, well, it's for the big companies. It's for the big boys. I remember going to Oxford University's conference on ODR, which had invited Amazon, Alibaba, AliExpress, eBay, and others to come and talk about their platforms. Wonderful, wonderful. But it felt like it was for the big boys, and anything in the middle boys, and for legal tech, it wasn't there. And I think ODR is in a particular way moving to what we now call legal tech. There seems to be a legal tech. I don't know if you guys have come across Harvey, if you've come across Spellbook, these platforms that help lawyers to create documents quickly, that help them negotiate, plan your negotiation, using artificial intelligence, algorithms. For me, that's all ODR. That's all online dispute resolution, helping you to become better at what you do, getting consumers in, getting users in. I think we're going to see by 2030, I think the world is going to look very, very different in the world of ODR. And these platforms out of Asia are going to become global. They won't be national. They won't be regional. They will be global. I'm sure you saw recently posts from Colin Rule in the US where, you know, AAA have just gone and bought ODR.com. And what's ODR thing? But there's an interest. There's an interest now across different organizations, big and small, as to what the world of ODR will do. Now, you know, those are big numbers and the big platforms. But I think smaller platforms are going to come and make a big impact as well. Yeah. AI, I mean, it's scary. It's scary. I can't even keep up sometimes. Like when I read what's going on.
Nobody can ask AI. You can even probably, I was at a conference and I think there was something Colin was sharing too on one of these webinars that he was on, and the kind of stuff that AI will do to you. And someone cracked a joke that they were going to send him more questions, and I was like, oh, maybe he will get ChatGPT to answer their questions, because he'll probably do better than he would do anyway, and that they should just check and be sure, except they find that if they don't find any grammatical errors or typos, then they know it's definitely ChatGPT. But if there are errors and typos, then they know what him who wrote it.
Absolutely. I was posting on LinkedIn last week, and I was writing my LinkedIn message, and at the bottom it said, do you want AI to rewrite this for you?
Exactly.
LinkedIn has got an AI.
Now,
my Zoom, last week I did a Zoom meeting. I asked the AI tool to keep notes and to send me a note after it was finished. Done. Zoom did that.
Zoom, oh, okay. I haven't used that. Maybe I'll try using that going forward.
You should use it. Yeah, it's called the Zoom tool AI companion.
AI companion. Interesting.
Incredible. Like, you know,
Otter didn't do a good job of it, and I think that put a lot of people off. because that was like breaching confidentiality and all of that. So that wasn't quite, but I'm not sure any people have like moved away from it now, but I'll try this new Zoom.
Yeah, you can switch it off, you can switch it on.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to allow a digital tool to help you become more efficient, listen without taking notes, that's pretty powerful.
Well, the only thing I always just say when we use AI is that we must be very mindful. Just like Mireille said that Elon Musk said AI is evil. We must be careful that we don't try to pass everything on to AI, because sometimes people get carried away and they think, well, there's so much that, oh, this looks too beautiful, and they don't even have a second reading as to what has been generated by AI. And that to me is where the problem lies. It's to be able to draw that line and know how far you can go with technology assisting you. So remembering that technology can only assist you and you are not assisting technology or passing on your responsibilities, because whichever way you look at it, you're still primarily responsible for whatever it is you churn out. So whether you thought, well, I assumed because I Googled it or the ChatGPT brought it up, it must be correct. Just like the lawyer in the US who got sanctioned. Exactly. So that's what I just always want to emphasize. Whatever we do, technology will assist us to get better, not the other way around.
I think if I can say, technology is good, but technology is an aid to a human being. And the minute we as humans lose control of that, because even with AI, I think one of the things they are dealing with here, and especially maybe worldwide, is now they are talking about, okay, GPT can do, it can write for students. But what they have done, they have come up with another software that can tell whether this particular conversation was totally generated by AI. Because now if we let the student AI just write everything for student, then the student will do nothing. So how do you counter that? The colleges now can come in and plug that in and say, you know what, this is AI generated. Even when you write a book and when it's AI generated, they'll tell you, so how do you solve that? They say you can take the ideas from the AI or from ChatGPT and also try to customize to yourself so that it has that human input in there. Because I think the danger is, if you look at what they are talking about maybe in the future, where they are talking about machine learning, where now everything can be controlled. And if we reach that stage, that can be very dangerous, where you have even computers telling you, I'm not going to do what you're saying what you're going to do. And I think in Europe, they have really come up and said, look, we need to create laws to control this, because we don't want, yes, it's good to have machines. It's good to have self-driving cars. But I think, where does the human being come in? Because otherwise, we as human beings, we will be the one who are really in trouble, not the machines. So there is that balance where it's good, but up to what limit do we stop it from now controlling us as human beings?
Yeah.
Thank
You're
you.
absolutely.
Go on, Ryan.
I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. Look, we as a society, as the world, we need to come together and really also think about the regulation of AI, because it's very frightening. It's great, but it's got very many evil aspects. And I think the governments of the big countries have been too slow to come together. Finally, it sounds like the EU is trying to do something about this. But you see, if the EU does something but China doesn't, and the US doesn't, and the UK doesn't, then it's not enough. They need to come together. For me, this is an existential issue, and we need much more leadership than we have seen in moving this forward, because otherwise we're just leaving it to the corporates, and the corporates don't have the same agenda as a government does to help, and that's a fear. That's a genuine fear for me. Every revolution, technological, the book revolution, the knowledge revolution, they were all scary, but this AI revolution seems very, very severe. But yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. Sorry to interrupt you, Marika.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Do we have any other questions? We're almost hitting the 1 hour mark now. We usually don't stay beyond an hour, and it's nice that it's been an interactive session all the way. So thank you, Rahim. That was very good. But I'm going to allow Mirez, who is a member of our board of trust of advisory board, to say thank you formally if we don't have any other questions for you, Rahim, so we can let you go. Do we have any other questions or comments from anyone? If not, Mirez, could you do us the honors to just say thank you to Rahim for us, please?
Yes, Rahim, thank you very much. I had met you, you may remember, at a mediation moot at the ICC several years ago.
Yes.
And it was a pleasure to listen to you today. And I did appreciate also, as Morenike mentioned, this interactive session. Thank you for all those who contributed. And thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. I think we should keep our work going on and keep ourselves informed. And yeah, you should be actually joining ICODA, and you should be joining the NCTDR group, so that we stay in touch, all of us together, with all the initiatives we take forward, because this is how it started. Actually, we started this group in year 2000 when we started gathering once a year to take stock of the research and the work each of us was doing. So this is great. Thank you for sharing your experience, and hope to see you soon. And thank you for all.
No, thank you. Very kind invitation. I wish you all the very best of luck, and I do look forward to participating again in the future, and also with the other organizations, Mira, as you mentioned. But thank you so much for making it interactive for me. I much prefer those kinds of sessions because I learn as much as I share.
And maybe I should also, since Mirez has been kind enough, as board member of ICODA, I'm currently the president of ICODA, so we'll definitely be shooting you an email to come join ICODA. I should have been the one to have been doing that. Thank you, Mirez, for taking on the initiative to do that. So you'll definitely get an email from Colin to come join ICODA.
I appreciate the email. Looking forward to receiving it.
Okay, then. Thank you, everyone. Nice meeting you, Ryan.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Morenike, you're staying on?
No, we'll have to end this meeting and then
okay. All right.
Yeah, okay then. Thank you.